And so, we must be cautious of those who boast of their spiritual powers. Any person we meet who keeps showing off that they have this power or that ability, we must be all the more cautious. Why is that? Because in Buddhism, the truly noble ones who possess supernatural abilities all keep them concealed. They do not show them off. Many times, they have already used their powers to help us, and we were not even aware of it. For example, when they are near us, when they meet us and see our great suffering, they know but they say nothing. They simply smile and say, "Well, may you be blessed." But in truth, within their minds, they have already silently called upon the celestial beings. Please help this person overcome their difficulties, and help this person receive the teaching so they may perform many meritorious deeds. Then, after we meet that teacher and return home, our life suddenly changes. We find it more comfortable, more fortunate, and we don't know why. But we fail to realize that it was the teacher who secretly helped us, and he never boasted of it. As for the person who, upon meeting us, just brags and says, "Ah, now that you've come to me, you will be lucky," that all the more proves this person lacks basic human virtue, because the virtue of being human is to not show off. We must remember this. Remember it well. Then, another characteristic of Buddhism is this: whenever Buddhism arrives in a native land, it always nurtures the beautiful traditional customs of that place while helping to discard the mistaken ones. This is the courage of Buddhism. For example, upon coming to Vietnam, it saw something beautiful in the Vietnamese people. A custom where at the beginning of the year, on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd days of Tet, they visit pagodas. The children and grandchildren must wear beautiful clothes to wish their elders a long life, expressing their love and respect. And when people meet, quarreling is forbidden. Isn't that right? They are only allowed to speak to each other with kind words. Adults with money give gifts of lucky money to the young ones, while the young ones clasp their hands and offer good wishes to the adults. That is to say, during those 3 days of Tet, people are only to treat each other with affection. No one is allowed to cause trouble. This has been our custom for 1,000 generations. And when Buddhism came to Vietnam, it immediately saw this custom as what? As something truly beautiful. And if we lived like those 3 days of Tet all year round, our country would become a land of angels, wouldn't it? It would be a celestial realm, no longer a human one. The only thing is, we can only manage to hold out for 3 days. By the 4th day, we are ready for battle. So we continue to be a realm of human beings, full of competition, sadness, and anger. If we lived for 365 days like we do during the 3 days of Tet, this place would be a heavenly paradise. So, Buddhism maintains this custom. And we can see, there is no time when the atmosphere in the pagodas is more sacred than during the 3 days of Tet. Is there? And during Tet, the pagodas are just as bustling and festive as the people. This is not the case in other countries. Other Buddhist nations do not have this at all. Only in Vietnam, during these 3 days are the pagodas exceptionally joyful. The venerable monks and nuns also dress beautifully. The pagodas are exquisitely decorated, and they joyfully welcome all the Buddhist followers. And why is that? Because it is a message that Buddhism entrusts to our nation. Our people have a profoundly beautiful custom that for 3 days of Tet, we must live in loving kindness with one another. But there are superstitious customs that Buddhism always calls on us to abandon completely. For example, and this may be a sensitive topic as many people still hold onto such mistaken, superstitious customs. For example, when 2 young people are in love, the parents object. They insist on checking something, asking, "What is the girl's zodiac animal? We must take it to a master for a reading first." And so, even if the 2 love each other, are compatible in personality, and are both virtuous, simply because their zodiac signs are deemed incompatible, the parents are determined to forbid the marriage. They fear this or that might happen if they wed. Or, if the marriage does proceed, it must be a small, mediocre wedding, and the couple must use the back door to avoid bad luck. This is so pitiful for them. Their joy is incomplete. Our Buddhism does not and cannot accept that. Everything is based on cause and effect. In any given year, so many people are born. Some good, some bad, right? We cannot say that simply because of a zodiac sign we should become so attached to a belief. That isn't right. It becomes an act of cruelty. It is precisely because of this attachment to zodiac signs that many women born in the year of the tiger have found it incredibly difficult to find a partner. Isn't that right? It is so. For example, someone once asked me, "Venerable Sir, it seems that a person's name also affects their life, their destiny. Is that true?" I replied that in the past I also believed that. I also believed that the name our parents gave us influences the course of our lives. But after reading the public security newspaper too often, I stopped believing. And why is that? Because the robbers and criminals featured in it had all the most beautiful names in the world. Prestigious names, truly elegant names, yet all of them ended up on the lists of the public security newspaper. From that point on, I became far less convinced that a beautiful name guarantees a beautiful life. Therefore, this idea that a good zodiac year leads to a good life or a beautiful name leads to a beautiful life, this is something we should believe in less. Because the Buddha himself taught this in the past. When the Buddha met a high-ranking Brahmin, he asked, "What are the criteria to be called a Brahmin?" The man replied that there were 7 criteria. One must come from a bloodline of 7 generations of Brahmins. One must have a handsome appearance. One must be fluent in the Brahmin scriptures and incantations. One must have wisdom, and one must have virtue, and so on. The Buddha then said, "Now, please leave one of them out." The man thought for a moment and said, "All right, let's leave out appearance. Being a little unattractive is acceptable as long as the blood, the genes are of Brahmin descent, and as long as that person knows the incantations." The Buddha said, "Now, please leave out one more." The man thought again and said, "All right, let's leave out the bloodline. If this person knows the incantations by heart, lives a virtuous life, and possesses wisdom, they can also be a Brahmin." The Buddha said, "Now, leave out one more." The man thought, and one by one, he let go of the criteria until finally he agreed with the Buddha on this. Only 2 things are needed, wisdom and virtue. With these, a person is worthy of being called a Brahmin. All other labels, age, name, should be left behind. And for us now, it is the same. To be called a good person in this world, what must we leave out? We must leave out distinctions based on appearance. We must leave out distinctions based on customs that are sometimes superstitious or archaic. We do not judge a person by their name, nor by their age. Instead, we pay attention only to whether that person has wisdom and virtue. That is all. Because sometimes a person's birth year may seem unfavorable, but in reality, that person achieves great things. Their actions are good, their karma is good, and so they are a good person. For example, there is a funny story. A young man from the countryside moved to the city to study. While studying and working, he fell in love with a young woman. Because he was intelligent and virtuous, she loved him dearly. He told her his name was Siyu, a fine-sounding name. So she simply called him "my beloved Siyu." But when the day came for him to bring her home to meet his parents to prepare for their wedding, as they reached the entrance to his village alley, his little nieces and nephews ran out, hugged him, and called him by his real name. The girl then realized that the name on his birth certificate was not the noble-sounding Siyu he had told her, but a similar-sounding name written without the diacritical mark, a version which unfortunately carries a very crude and embarrassing meaning in our language. Is there anyone here with such a name? When I was young, I was also called by a name like that. As a child, it was not an issue, but as I grew a little older, I started to feel embarrassed. Oh my, why call me that? I had to change it. In the South, there is a custom of giving children ugly-sounding names with the belief that it makes them easier to raise and protects them from misfortune. This is another one of those backward customs that Buddhism has helped our country to eliminate. So, this is another standard of Buddhism. Buddhism maintains good customs and helps eliminate backward customs so that human life can be truly better. That is another standard. Buddhism does not maintain bad customs. Understand? So if we meet a monk or a nun who keeps urging us to maintain backward customs, we know this person is not propagating a true Buddhism. It is not so. Then, Another characteristic of a true Buddhism is this: it possesses a scientific spirit and cherishes knowledge. All of its reasoning is highly logical, like mathematics. There is no imposition of belief. For example, consider this conclusion: this person has a beautiful face, therefore this person will be rich. The reasoning goes from A to B. A is, this person has a beautiful face, leading to B, this person will be rich. Why would a beautiful person become rich? The assumption is, if you're beautiful, you'll be rich. Such hasty reasoning is considered illogical. Buddhism does not accept this. Buddhism demands that reasoning be logical. The person is beautiful, but why are they beautiful? What cause and effect from the past does that beauty represent? There are many kinds of beauty. There are beautiful people who remain poor, are there not? There are beautiful people whose lives are filled with extreme misery and hardship. Yet there are other beautiful people whose lives truly blossom into glory. Why is this? It is because each type of beauty has its own cause and effect. Some people are beautiful because in a past life they often made offerings and decorated sacred shrines. In this life, they are born with a beautiful face. But other people are beautiful because of their kindness, patience, self-sacrifice, and altruism, which also manifests as a beautiful face. This latter kind of beauty, however, is the one that leads to glory and prosperity. The two kinds of beauty are different. Therefore, when we look at our own face and the faces of others to evaluate beauty, we must look deeper. If the beauty is of the glamorous type, belonging to someone who loves ornaments and decoration, we know this beauty may not lead to wealth and could even lead to hardship and danger. For instance, in America, there was a case where a little girl had just won a beauty pageant and was immediately killed. In that case, her beauty did not bring glory but concealed a potential disaster, because many coveted that beauty with evil intentions. But there are other people whose beauty is gentle and kind, and their lives truly are fortunate, soaring ever upward. Therefore, in Buddhism, reasoning must be logical. If someone says, beauty equals wealth, do not believe it. That is not logical. One must ask, if a person is beautiful, from what cause does that beauty arise to bring about the fruit of prosperity? That is why Buddhism is characterized by its rigorous, logical reasoning on all matters. It does not jump to conclusions, and knowledge is cherished. But it differs from science in one crucial way. After accumulating knowledge, science continues to explore and innovate. In contrast, Buddhism, while knowing all things, turns inward to the path of spiritual exploration and enlightenment, rather than outward toward invention and creation like science. The two are different, but what do they have in common? A foundation in logic, a scientific spirit, and a love for knowledge. Yet one path leads to external invention, while the other leads to internal spiritual discovery. The two are different. This is also what helps us to define our Buddhism. Another characteristic of Buddhism, a very beautiful one, is this: our Buddhism prioritizes building the good over opposing the bad. Prioritizes building the good over opposing the bad. What does this mean? It means that if we meet a person with shortcomings, we do not take those shortcomings and criticize them, scold them, or speak harshly. Buddhism is not like that. Instead, it prioritizes this. For example, if we see someone who is selfish, we do not focus on their selfishness and scold them, saying, "You are so selfish and wicked." No, Buddhism does not do that. So what does Buddhism say? Buddhism says this: we should live an altruistic life, always thinking of others. This is building the good in that person's mind, not attacking the bad. This is the compassionate spirit of Buddhism, which allows people to gradually follow the path, to see their own faults, and to overcome them on their own, not through suffering or shame brought on by the criticism of others. They are different. We must grasp this spirit to live and practice together in harmony. Therefore, when Dharma brothers and sisters grasp this true spirit of Buddhism, they live together in great joy, because when we have faults, we are never disgraced by having our brothers and sisters point them out. Instead, we know that our brothers and sisters will gently suggest a good quality, a beautiful virtue, for us to strive toward and build within our own soul. We are not shamed by our weaknesses. Therefore, we can come together with great affection and ease. And understanding this, just say that. Don't say, gluttony is bad, no. The spirit of Buddhism is to prioritize building the good over opposing the bad. Therefore, when we go to a place and all we hear is this person speaking ill of that one, and that one criticizing another, we know that place lacks the spirit of Buddhism. Because in our Buddhism, that practice is rare. It simply does not exist. Remember this. Another characteristic of Buddhism is a very strong spirit of community service. We will be the most diligent person. We will take on the hardest work. Or, in our neighborhood, when there is a task for the village or hamlet, we volunteer. If a road is damaged, we don't wait for the government to create a program with blueprints and budgets. If there is a pothole, we fill it first. We'll deal with the official procedures later. That is a very high spirit of community service. For example, if we discover our village school lacks proper toilets for the children, we take the initiative, speak to our neighbors, and together we build more toilets and maintain them, ensuring our children have a clean, safe place at school so they don't get sick. Because if they have to hold their bladder, they will develop illnesses. Currently, the toilet situation in schools across our country is a serious problem. Many children go from the start of the school day until they get home without daring to use the restroom, which can lead to dangerous kidney problems. Why do young children get kidney disease? Sometimes the reason is as simple as the school toilets. Whereas here, when we carry the spirit of Buddhism, we are always eager to serve the community. Whatever can be done, we do. On a larger scale, this extends to a spirit of patriotism. A Buddhist must be a person who loves their country. There can never be a situation where a Buddhist does something contrary to the rights of their nation or their people. Remember that. We can never accept a Buddhist betraying their people or their nation. Is there anyone here who would betray the people? Surely not. So we hope. So, in addition to our nation's tradition of fervent patriotism, Buddhism breathes into our hearts the spirit, this responsibility toward the community. And so our patriotism becomes 10,000 times stronger. And furthermore, it becomes a love for all of humanity. More than any other religion, Buddhism is the religion that cherishes peace for this world. Another religion might, in its own name, take up guns to shoot their fellow human beings or use bombs to kill them. But in Buddhism, that cannot happen. In the name of the Buddha, in the name of Buddhism, one can only bring peace and love to humanity. This means the spirit of community service in Buddhism is very powerful. So, if anyone teaches us selfishness, passivity, or to do nothing, we know immediately that they are transmitting a non-authentic Buddhism. In contrast, the person who always reminds us to endure hardship to do beneficial things for the community, we know that this person is teaching us a true Buddhism. The distinction is clear. Another point is that a true Buddhism does not favor formalism. It does not favor formalism but focuses on the inner mind. External forms are relative, maintained only to foster a sense of solemnity and respect. For example, when attending a ceremony, it is enough to wear a set of clothes that is neat, modest, and elegant. It does not need to be flashy or of a particular style. Decorating a pagoda is the same. We should not fill it with so many statues and objects of worship that there is no space left for people to practice. A pagoda is a place where the divine and human beings meet. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas should have their altars, but there must also be open spaces for people to sit in quiet contemplation, to chant, and to practice. If our displays of form leave no room for people, that is not right. This is the direction for us to understand. Our Buddhism does not focus on form, nor does it cling to rules and regulations. What is important is achieving a good outcome for human beings. The person who is not good, however, will at the slightest provocation bring out rules and regulations to argue. In reality, those rules and regulations exist only to serve people, not to be used against them. I remember one time when my pagoda was in a forest on the mountain in Ba Ria Vung Tau, and the province granted permission, so I built it. After it was finished, a provincial police officer came to see me. He said, "You have built illegally." I asked, "How is it illegal?" He replied, Your permit is only for the main hall, but you have many other structures, living quarters, toilets, a kitchen. I said, now that I've finished the main hall, am I supposed to go live in the forest? He insisted, but the law stipulates that every structure must have a permit. I replied, then you should go back and amend your law. The law is meant to serve the people, not to create difficulties for them. Your law is unresponsive. You grant a permit to build a main hall but fail to grant permits for the auxiliary buildings needed for people to live. Your law is flawed, not the people. Amend your law. He was speechless. And so we understand, don't we? Everything in life is like this. If we constantly use rules and regulations to make life difficult for one another, we are not good people. In Buddhism, it is the same. To constantly use rules to make each other suffer is wrong. What matters is the goal. The goal is to bring prosperity, happiness, peace, and loving kindness to one another. That is life. That is the goal we strive for. All rules and regulations are merely the means, not the ultimate end. To use rules to make others suffer, that is the act of a cruel person. In Buddhism, this is called Silabbata paramesa, clinging to rules and rituals. It is a vice of an unenlightened person. The Buddha taught that when a person attains the first stage of sainthood, sotapanna, they will abandon this vice of clinging to rules. But as long as a person has not attained this stage, they love to use rules to make others suffer. The person who has attained it always aims directly for the goal. And what is the goal of our life? It is to live in loving kindness and bring happiness to one another. That is the goal. Never lose sight of it. We hope our government will also gradually see this. The law is one thing, but serving the people must always be the ultimate goal. It's like the recent story from Da Nang about the party secretary, Mr. Nguyen Ba Tan. He summoned all the men in the city who were known to beat their wives for a talk. He persuaded them and had them sign a pledge. The law has no provision for a party secretary to do this, but he ignored the regulations because it brought a good outcome for the people. Or, after finishing his work at the office, he would spend an hour at his home receiving citizens, resolving their issues on the spot. The people adored their leader because he did not get stuck on rules but aimed directly for the goal. A prosperous people, a strong country, and a just, democratic, and civilized society. He aimed for the goal and got it done. And our Buddhism is the same. We do not favor excessive form or cling to countless rules. We always aim directly for the goal of living together with compassion and selflessness. And that is a true Buddhism. Thus, a true Buddhism always takes meditation as its core. I have given a talk on meditation is the future of humanity. Have you, the followers, seen it yet? If not, please try to find that teaching and listen to it. Meditation is the future of humanity. In the time to come, the entire world will have to practice meditation because it unlocks human spirituality and elevates our capacity to a higher level. Therefore, it is mandatory that everyone practice meditation. One must purify one's own mind, live in tranquility and stability. And whatever practice or method one follows, one must be able to gather the mind in meditation. This is also a standard for knowing whether a teaching is true Buddhism or not. If a form of Buddhism does not take meditation as its core, it is still wandering on the periphery and has not yet penetrated the heart of the teachings. Therefore, to follow Buddhism is to enter the core of meditation. Just like this morning, when the venerable monks guided us in meditation. Did you enjoy sitting? To be honest, it is not easy to enjoy meditation. Our legs go numb, they ache, we cannot move, we cannot speak. It's not easy. Only a person with a very strong root of practice from past lives will truly enjoy sitting in meditation. Their legs are numb and aching. Their mind is turbulent, sweat is pouring down, yet they persist sitting every single day. This person has a great karmic foundation from previous lives. Otherwise, most people practice for a few days and then give up. And if we give up, we cannot enter the core of Buddhism. Therefore, please try never to give up meditation. Always be diligent, energetic, and enthusiastic in your practice, just as the monks guided us this morning. Remember that And the leaders of the Fat and Dharma Center must always remind our brothers and sisters everywhere to gather and sit in meditation together, or to sit at home. Always do so, for meditation is the core of Buddhism. So, another thing is this: the spirit of propagation and teaching is very strong. When we come to know the Dharma and see how it transforms our lives and brings peace to our souls, none of us can keep it to ourselves. We always want to share it with others. Why? It is like a glass of water. When it is full, what happens? It overflows. A full glass must overflow. If we see a glass that is not overflowing, we know it is not yet full. It is the same with our hearts. When our soul is filled with the Dharma, filled with love for humanity, filled with the ideal of practice, we can no longer keep that teaching to ourselves. We will always want to share it with the person next to us, with our neighbors. That is the sign to know if the teaching in our heart is truly full. If it is not overflowing, it is not yet full. Such is the spirit. Thus, a true disciple of the Buddha is always eager to share the teachings with those around them. In their workplace, in their family, with their neighbors, with everyone, everywhere. Another thing is this: we must always choose our teachers, the monks and nuns, based on their qualities, and not hastily place our faith in them simply because of their appearance. We may see someone in the robes of a monk or nun, but we should not rush to place our trust in them. No, for our followers, especially here in Nay and where there is a great shortage of pagodas and monastics, whenever we see someone in robes, we feel immense affection. This heart is very good, very praiseworthy. But we must be careful not to be mistaken. For over 2,500 years since the time of the Buddha, there have been people who wear the robes of Buddhism, but whose hearts are not necessarily Buddhist. Their teachings may not align with the true standard of Buddhism. Therefore, when we meet someone in the robes of a monastic, we should still feel respect, but please take the time to inquire further, to see if they truly meet the standard of Buddhism before placing your deepest trust and devotion in them. Remember this, everyone. Looking at me with such a suspicious face, person like that is suspicious. You must re-examine them slowly. You cannot believe them immediately. Now I will speak a little about selflessness. Selflessness is the core spirit of Buddhism. We may not have practiced it much, but if we grasp this core principle to live and to practice, we need not fear going down the wrong path. Normally, all of us have an ego inside, and this I often urges us to do many wrong and foolish things. For example, it urges us to be greedy, it urges us to be defensive, it urges us to be competitive, pushes us into all sorts of nonsense. A practitioner of Buddhism knows that all faults arise from this ego. Our anger comes from the ego. Our competitiveness comes from the ego. Our schemes and tricks all come from the ego. Therefore, if we can just grasp this ego and vanquish it, all good things will immediately arise and blossom. We must contemplate that deep inside us there is a self, a sinful self, a mediocre self, an evil self, hidden in the depths of our soul. We do not see its face, but every day it commands us, causing us to hate this person, criticize that one, or speak ill of another. We spend our lives as slaves to this wretched self, and for eons, we never find peace or happiness. And it is because of this self that those around us cannot be happy either. If this self diminishes, if it subsides, we become happy, and everyone around us becomes happy. We no longer quarrel with anyone. We are no longer greedy or competitive with anyone. We no longer lose our temper with anyone. Naturally, everyone around us finds happiness. And the sign of whether our practice is good, we go to the pagoda often, but is our practice good? Is this, after a period of practicing at the pagoda or Dharma center, when we return home, are the people around us happier? If the more we go to the pagoda, the more those around us suffer, we have gone down the wrong path. Our ego has grown. You might ask, how can one practice a lot and have their ego increase? It happens. It's because in our hearts we constantly praise ourselves. The ego always pushes us to praise ourselves. Who here praises themselves every day? Giving yourself a few compliments. Raise your hand. Giving yourself a few compliments every day. That is the ego urging you on. It is not real. We praise ourselves thinking, today I did 10 prostrations to the Buddha. I'm so good. Oh, today I chanted a sacred sutra. Oh, today I sat in meditation longer than usual. Today I heard a special teaching, so I'm really great. I've gained so much merit. When we praise ourselves, the ego swells a little. Then we go home, and if someone makes a small mistake, we become irritable and critical. Everyone around us gets upset and thinks, "You just came back from the pagoda? Why are you so difficult?" The unexpected reason is simply that we praised ourselves. That silent self-praise can instantly damage our relationships with others. In contrast, the person who regularly finds fault with themselves will naturally live very happily with others, because their ego shrinks. Who here is the one who criticizes themselves the most? Raise your hand, let me see. 1, 2, 3 for people. When we regularly see our own faults, we are essentially criticizing ourselves. Naturally, our ego shrinks, and when it does, we suddenly find ourselves living very joyfully with others. This is the strange and wonderful formula, the key to spiritual practice. A person with a small ego naturally gets along with everyone because they do not cling to their own opinions. As I said this morning, when we cling to our own thoughts and protect our own ideas, our relationships with others will immediately begin to crack. Everyone clings to their own ideas, each person sealed in their own ivory tower, and we lose our love, our harmony, our unity. But if we can let go of our ideas as they arise, not clinging, not protecting them, we can more easily see the hearts of others and merge our heart with theirs. Suddenly, love and unity blossom. This is a crucial point in our practice, and it has some depth. Children may not have the reasoning to understand this, but we adults must. When a thought arises and we cling to it, defending it as my idea, we are clinging to the self, and our relationships will begin to fracture. But if, when a thought arises, we don't cling to it, don't protect it, but know how to let it go so we can listen to the views of others, our relationships will naturally become beautiful. Creates a spirit of gentleness. And in an organization, if we are a person who knows how to obey, we create discipline. The most dangerous person is the one who acts on their own initiative, doing this and that without consulting anyone. That person will always cause things to fall apart. So in this life, even if you have a brilliant idea, never be so confident as to think it is perfect. Always ask for the opinions of others, those above you, below you, and beside you before you make a decision. That is for independent matters. In an organization, we have the right to offer suggestions, but we do not have the right to cling to our opinions. We can offer our ideas to our leader, but after hearing them, the leader is the one who decides and bears the responsibility. Once they have decided, we let go of our own idea and obey. That is a life of selflessness. It creates a system with discipline, unity, and loving harmony. And in our Dharma Center, it is the same. When we come to the Fat and Dharma Center to practice together, we can offer suggestions gently, but we do not cling to our opinions. We do not cling, and we enjoy obeying. The characteristic of a selfless person is that they love to obey. And what is the characteristic of a person with a big ego? They love to command others. About a week ago, I gave a talk on the philosophy of power, and I said that a person with a large ego loves to command, while a selfless person loves to obey. So when you enter a pagoda, you can tell if someone has practiced well for a long time by looking at their attitude of obedience. If you see that person is very easy to obey, that they follow any instruction given, you know their ego is already very small. You might ask, "Venerable Sir, if I'm that obedient, isn't it a sign of weakness?" No, it is not weakness. That's a separate issue. First and foremost, the shrinking of our ego is itself a great happiness. To live in a community where one enjoys being compliant and obedient brings a profound happiness to the heart that outsiders cannot feel. Only when our own ego shrinks and we learn to enjoy obeying will we be able to feel that happiness. So from this day forward, let us vow to one another that when we come to the path, to the Dharma Center, we will strive to enjoy obeying more than we enjoy clinging to our own opinions, more than we enjoy giving commands. If we do this, we will be walking the true path of selflessness taught by the Buddha. Is that agreed? And so, I hope that the next time I return, I will hear reports from everyone saying, "Venerable Sir," and the group leader should report, "My Dharma brothers and sisters are now more wonderful than I am." Why? Because they are all selfless and harmonious. I am the only one who still gives orders. I am the most flawed of all. If the group leader reports to me like that, then I will be satisfied. Then I will believe that my disciples are practicing well. So another characteristic is this: the longer we practice, the more we lose our sense of self-pity when reprimanded or punished by our teacher or friends. For example, if I were to call one of you up and say, "Sir, I saw you make a mistake. Come up here and kneel with an incense stick." So I light an incense stick before the Buddha and have you kneel. Would you be angry with me? Honestly, would you be angry? I'm done with this man. I'll never see his face again. He punished me. That is the common reaction. But if you have practiced for a long time, when the teacher calls you up to scold or punish you, you suddenly feel an incredible joy. You think, "For years, my teacher hasn't even noticed me. Today he called me up to correct me. I'm so happy." Suddenly, a reprimand becomes a reward. There is a story like this in the Zen collection Gathering Sand and Stone, GOP not Katta. In a Japanese monastery, it was a certain student's turn to cook. He was running late, and it was nearly time for the community meal, but he hadn't even started the soup. He grabbed a sickle, ran outside, and hastily cut vegetables. Slash, slash, slash. Tossing them into the pot, he reached into the pot with his chopsticks and pulled out the head of a small snake. It turned out that in his haste, the student had accidentally cut off the snake's head. No wonder the soup was so rich. The abbot didn't say a word of reprimand. He simply held up the snake's head. The student who had cooked saw this, ran forward, took the snake's head. The abbot's act of holding up the snake's head was the reprimand, and the student's act of eating it meant, "I am so happy to be corrected by you." That is the meaning of the story. But now, if I were to correct you, what would happen? You would sulk and walk away, wouldn't you? We must practice until we can overcome this self-pity when corrected. We must reach a point where being corrected by our teacher or our friends brings us immense joy. We should only fear that no one will correct us. If I ask, "How many times have you been corrected?" and you answer, "Sir, 10 times, then you are an incredibly fortunate person. Incredibly fortunate. My time is up, but let me say a few more things. They formed the spiritual foundation of our region, a foundation which has been lost and which we must now rebuild. Therefore, it is the duty of all Buddhist followers in Nay and to find a way to rebuild these pagodas, following all legal procedures. When we discover the foundation of an old pagoda, we must submit an application to the government, stating our request to restore it. Together with local authorities, we must form a construction committee. Once the plans are drawn and the province issues a permit, we can begin fundraising. We must establish a proper committee and follow the legal process. In places where no one has yet applied to build a pagoda, the people must urge the government, and the government must urge the people. A local official should see that no application has been made and call the villagers together, asking, "Why have you not submitted an application to build a pagoda? We are waiting for you to do so." The officials must urge the people, and the people must urge the officials. If you see that your locality has no pagoda, you must urgently prepare an application and tell your local official, "Sir, you must take the lead on this. Take this application to the district and provincial authorities for me, so we can quickly build a pagoda for our community." Everyone must be of one mind to quickly rebuild at least the 270 pagodas that once existed on the land of Nayan. Do you agree? Promise me this. And when building a pagoda, it should be like this. The other day, I visited Nam Dan district, where in Nam Tan commune lies the foundation of the old Vien Quang Pagoda. The vice chairman of the commune himself is the head of the Pagoda Reconstruction Committee. He invited me to collaborate on the project. I told him this: pagodas of the past were 1 story, but pagodas of today must be 3 stories. The main hall must have 3 floors, not including the surrounding buildings. The lowest floor is for honoring the patriarchs and for meetings, Dharma talks, and community activities. The second floor is for the main shrine, where people come to prostrate and chant. And the top floor, the third floor, is for people to sit in silent meditation to go deep into their practice. So, a modern pagoda must have 3 levels. And the surrounding buildings, especially the restrooms, must be built to the highest modern standards. A society's level of civilization is reflected in its restrooms. No matter how grand a house is, if its bathrooms are squalid, we consider it uncivilized. Times have changed. We no longer use the fields. Who here still uses the fields? Raise your hand. That's not acceptable anymore. Earlier, we said that true Buddhism is a universal teaching for the entire cosmos. For now, setting aside the cosmos, we believe one thing firmly. Buddhism can connect the world into a great commonwealth, the dream of so many righteous people. Through the teaching of selflessness, the heart of compassion, and belief in cause and effect, we can create a peaceful world where no one wages war, no one kills, and no one exploits another. In the spirit of compassion, we cannot accept exploitation. The prohibition against killing is easy to understand. But what does it mean not to exploit? For example, a business owner with capital hires workers. If that owner follows the spirit of Buddhism, whenever the business earns a large profit, they will immediately give bonuses to the employees. They will think, it is thanks to the hard work of these employees that the business has profited so much. The credit belongs to them, and they will immediately increase their compensation. That is a non-exploitative person. And what is an exploitative owner? When the business earns huge profits, they keep it all for themselves, while continuing to pay their workers a bare subsistence wage. That is exploitation. Buddhism is the religion of compassion and love. Any business owner with the spirit of Buddhism will not allow a situation where one person exploits another. We hope and believe that with such a teaching, we can build a world of great commonwealth. If we are to build, we must build a true Buddhism, one free from superstition, wrong views, and deviation. With such a true Buddhism, our descendants for generations to come will receive endless blessings. Well, my time has ended. I would like to send all the people of Nay and my most earnest love. I respectfully wish everyone happiness and good fortune in your lives. May you be diligent in your practice, create great merit, and always advance on the path of spiritual enlightenment. I respectfully wish that our government officials at all levels will always serve the interests of the people, and especially that you will join in the people's aspiration to rebuild Buddhism for Nayan. And I hope that all my disciples will live together in love and harmony. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.